Hello, my name's Mark Kelly and welcome to another episode of Crossed Wires, the show where we try to bring clarity through conversation. In this episode, I am delighted to bring you a conversation with a queen of coffee, Linda Castle. Linda is a managing director of CLO Coffee Roasters, a wife, a mum, and so much more. She loves community and loves people, and of course, as this is Crossed Wires, she is a Christian. Now, how does she weave together all those aspects of her life, her job and her faith? Well, hopefully, we'll go some ways to answering that in our conversation. Well, before we get to this interview, I'd like to say a massive thank you once again to all those of you who've watched our previous episodes, have liked the videos by giving them a thumbs up, and have subscribed to the channel. Your engagement helps YouTube's algorithms tell people that you might like this stuff and maybe you want to see more of it. And of course, your feedback will also help us make this show better and more accessible. So please keep sending those in using our usual email address, hello@crossedwires.uk. Our continued hope is that by bringing you these interviews, we can all learn something new and fascinating, and that this channel adds something to the conversation of faith and culture. As usual, at the end of today's episode, I'll wrap up a few thoughts about what's been said. So, without further ado, let's dive in. So thrilled to have with me today Linda Castle. Now, Linda is a mother of 4 and, according to her Instagram account, a extra chromosome advocate, and I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about that later in our interview. With her partner Nick Castle, she has a social enterprise called CLO. I keep wanting to say CLO because that's the abbreviation of it, isn't it? But the name is CLO.
Yeah.
On the CLO website, it says of Linda that she's passionate about people and desires to make a positive difference in the world. She roasts coffee beans as part of her job and has an impeccable palate for tasting and sourcing great coffee. So, Linda, welcome.
Thank you.
Really, really good to have you on Crosswires. Obviously, I've just literally scraped the surface of who you are and what you do. So please, will you now just give us a bit more, tell us more about Linda Castle, who she is, what kind of woman she is, and what things is she involved in?
That's a nice summary, though. It's good work. I was thinking, what have I put on my Instagram? So I'm quite pleased. It was a positive. Yeah, I'm mum of 4. We've got Josh, who's 13, Cara's approaching 12, Brooke, who is 7, and Grace, who is 4. So we're doing a full range of child activities in lockdown. Got one in each key stage. And yeah, work with my husband running a coffee business, and more recently have become the coffee roaster for that business. Previously to that, really involved in church and church leadership and youth work, hairdressing, other random items along the way.
I no longer need hairdressing.
I do. But, yeah, so, but I think I discovered really the things I've been involved in, although hairdressing seems miles away from roasting or from youth work, it's all people-based and an excuse to chat and have conversations. So that's probably where I find my passion, and I don't mind how I outwork that in a way, if you understand that. So
Are you a bit of an extrovert then?
Yeah, annoyingly.
Are you powered by people?
Yeah. So like, if I'm at a party, I just go mental, and I don't need a drink to be first on the dance floor. I think I'm a bit of a nightmare like that. But one of those irritatingly enthusiastic, optimistic people. But I love it. Can't help it.
I don't think you're irritating at all. I think we need lots more people like you. So fantastic. You say you're part of a church, or you used to lead a church. Can you tell us a bit more about that community that you're involved in there?
Yeah, so I've been part of Dayspring Church in Garforth, which is East Leeds, since I was 6. So wow. Forever. We started at the Methodist Church, and then Dayspring Church in Garforth emerged, and my mum liked the sound of it, and we went there pretty much straight away as it started. So I'm still there now. Obviously very different at the moment with Zoom and things, and trying to do Zoom with 4 children proves its challenges, trying to get involved with church things. But pre-COVID, still really involved, and I've been on the leadership team 3 times with different leaders. So I keep popping in and leaving again. And they've all been really different experiences of leadership, which has been really interesting. So yeah.
Well, maybe we can talk a little bit more about those different experiences and kind of how you approach different kinds of people. But obviously, a huge part of who you are is involved in the coffee business. We'll talk a little bit more about roasting and how you do all that, maybe. But is coffee somewhat of a religion as well? Do you think it's become somewhat of a thing?
It's a thing. I think it's a thing. Yeah. I remember years ago watching, I think it must have been like this morning or something, when I was way back at uni, and they had on all these coffees from America with all these different flavors, and they were like, oh, one day you'll want a caramel cappuccino with skinny milk, and it was like a real laughing stock of like, what are you on about? And they did all that. It was a massive piece. I don't know why I remember it, because I didn't even like coffee at that stage of life. But I think we've really grasped it. And I think in England, we're in a great position where we're always influenced by America and what they're doing, and the big cups, the big quantities, the sugar, the flavors. And then we're sandwiched with kind of Europe, and particularly kind of Belgian, Scandinavian coffee, completely different, light roast, small cups, cortado. And it's like we always hit the middle of the trend, which is really nice. And I think people are getting into it. And I think you can get into it in England by either loving a massive mocha with caramel or being an espresso drinker, and you can still say that you're really into coffee. You've got your way of having it. So yeah.
Scandinavian coffee. No, that's not something I expected. I didn't think. I don't know why. I don't know why. I think they wouldn't drink coffee. But so did they roast their own as well? Is there a particular Scandinavian flavour? I mean, what's...
Yeah, they go really light roast. Probably blonder than we would. And drink it a lot more short, small bits of probably milk alternatives, the classic kind of hipster style. But really lightly roasted, and would probably look at something like a Starbucks roast and think it didn't even look like coffee and just pulls apart. So yeah.
Wow. And is that quite different from, say, typical Italian coffee?
Yeah.
That'd be quite dark and strong, would it? Yeah,
that would be really dark roasted. So like a Starbucks, you kind of, when you go, I'm going to get really boring.
Go for it.
When you roast really dark, the oils come out on what's called the second crack. So when you go into a cafe and you can see the beans sat in the grinder.
Crack. I'm learning so much here.
It's all oily down the outside of the grinder and the beans are like stuck and sliding. You've got yourself a dark roast, like an Italian.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. I tell you, you could be.
People often ask for an Italian coffee and they're like, is it grown in Italy? I'm like, Italy don't grow any coffee at all. It's just a roast style.
Well, do you know, I do hold my hand up to confess. I used to manage a coffee shop for 3 to 4 years in Leeds. It was called Cafe Nero, which obviously is a well-known brand. But apparently that has been consistently voted as the closest to an Italian tasting coffee than Starbucks and all the others. So forgive me for working for a chain. But it was
it's still people, isn't it, getting employed? Yes.
Absolutely. So what would be your favorite kind of bean or blend? What would you go for, Linda?
I tend to go, I'm probably biased in what I feel some of my calling in the past or maybe now has been to do with Africa, and I always go for African flavours, African coffees. And I think there's always a bias in your favourite things anyway, whether it's sometimes taste, but quite often it's story behind things for me.
Wonderful.
And I think the coffees they're really fruity. You can roast them quite light. You can get lots of interesting flavours from them. So I do genuinely like the taste of them. And I think the stories that come out of, transforming lives and things just helps the purchase to be like, yeah, I want that one. That's my choice. And obviously South American coffees are transforming lives there. But there's something for me where I've always had something about Africa and East Africa that's fascinated me and felt a bit of a God pull there. So
okay, all right.
yeah,
Well, let's talk about that for a bit, because obviously over the last number of years, people have become a little bit more aware of the ethical issues around kind of coffee and moral issues, all that kind of stuff, and it's come to the forefront of the public consciousness, hasn't it? So tell us a bit more about those stories then, and why Africa, East Africa, is the place that you prefer to do business or to get your beans from and things like that.
Yeah, we went as a family. No, not as a family. That's my plan. We went as a couple to Uganda a couple of years back, and we just witnessed firsthand how they produce their coffee in the mountains of Uganda, and it was fascinating how many people it impacts. So in Brazil, you would have like a farm of hectares and hectares with a farmer and a production team, and they would do it really well. It's great coffee, and it's a massive business. But in Uganda, it was literally people's back gardens. Like, we went to so many houses and met so many people, and they would just take you around the back of the house, and the house went up the hill, and that's where they grew their coffee. And we connected with a social enterprise out there that is agriculture based. So they've really invested so much time in training these people that you've got this garden, you've got 1 acre, 5 acres. Let's get some coffee out of this. And they've taught them how to kind of things like stumping and pruning and life cycles of the coffee trees and planting different varietals. And they're just teaching them agriculture stuff I don't really know about, but getting the best out of their plot of coffee, when to pick the coffee so it's ripe. And we saw so many women who just it was their job to look after it. So they would pick cherries when they were red, bring them down to the coffee station and get given cash for the weight of the good coffee there and then go and buy the food for the family. And the next week, pick the next lot that were ready. And it was just like such an instant transaction. You could see it was supporting the family from their own garden, and I loved that.
Wow.
As you can tell.
And so did seeing that and observing that, was that because of CLOs already existing, or did that help form CLOs?
We experienced that because of existing, because we had a connection, really lots of connections that ended us up in Uganda. So there's a guy who lives in the Lake District who used to be a Ugandan missionary, and his son has gone out there to set up this social enterprise, and he's got a business mind like nothing else. I mean, it's grown from, I think it's 6 years old, and it's grown from bags in his house to 2 massive factory plants. It's enormous. So our connections with the guy in the Lake District that took us to Uganda, and then randomly Nick's mum got married, and the guy had been to Uganda a few times and worked with an orphanage, which was half a mile down the road from the coffee plant. So we ended up connecting with the orphanage as well, the children's home. They're now growing some coffee that we can buy to help support the children's home. And it's like, so it was one of those situations where it all came together, and you go, we're going for this because it makes too much sense to turn around and not do it. So yeah,
lots of interconnecting things there that clearly there was some kind of plan involved, wasn't there, in getting those things.
Yeah.
You getting you involved, certainly. And so how does CLO kind of work then? Tell us about CLO.
Yeah, so we're a cafe in Garforth, which is where I talked about my church being as well. So it's a high street in East Leeds. We're in the middle of there and usually open, serving lots of people in the community, getting to know the community. And it's just what you'd expect: coffee, cake, sandwiches.
Very nice coffee, cake and sandwiches as well. I've been there several times.
Thank you very
much. Well, pre-pandemic anyway.
Yeah. And then we've been on a massive journey as a business. We've grown, we've extended and had other coffee shops around the city. We've had a couple of city centre ones, one in Cross Gates, we've had one in West Bromwich. And then it's kind of unpicked in varying speeds back to we're in Garforth and we're back here, and we're kind of now at the point of like, right, okay, how does this look? because we set up a roastery. I think that was in 2016. Yeah, maybe. It's all blurring with children's ages. But we set that up so that we could roast coffee for our own cafes, because doing that for the 5 cafes was enough income, and it was better to roast our own coffee for our own cafes. And then subsequently they've all gone in different ways. Either leases have been finished or they've not been sustainable. So we have a coffee roastery, and we don't need all the coffee for the one cafe. So we're looking at how do we extend that business to, maybe there's another way of supporting high streets and churches, and maybe it's not by doing the model of planting a cafe everywhere and replicating ourselves. Maybe it's offering lots of support, lots of advice, and selling our coffee to those people and having a connection. So that's kind of our pursuit now.
And obviously, within all that, you have those stories, haven't you, of those African places that you can tell, the ethical concerns you have, the moral issues that go on, and you're able to bring all that into the story of your coffee that you're presenting to all these kind of other organisations and churches and what have you. I mean, do you see a lot of other businesses kind of moving in that direction as well, trying to see how they, not obviously getting into coffee, but how can they maneuver their businesses to something that's more ethical, is more in line with what the public consciousness is moving into?
Yeah, I hope so. I think I'd love that to be the competitive situation, that everyone's competing for the most ethical. I think that's got to be where we ought to get to, really, because consumers, we're all consumers, and we consume, and sometimes you buy what you can afford to buy. And I think it's making, I feel like if everything was ethically traded and everyone was paid well, it would level out in such a way that it was also affordable for us, and it would be a win-win, instead of the super cheap for people being paid nothing. And so, yeah, I feel like I'd love that to be the situation we were in, where people felt they couldn't really serve coffee unless they knew the people were doing well, having a good life, being paid what they should be paid for the hours that they're working.
Yeah.
Because if it was your neighbour producing coffee, you wouldn't watch them go skint, would you? And you wouldn't watch them go homeless because they were next door to you. So I think the world needs to get smaller still, really, and we need to be our neighbour. Yeah.
Now, obviously, we see that in the coffee business. We've heard from you. Can you say what other businesses can you think of that are able to move into that ethical arena?
I think it'll be interesting with the EU situation and international trade becoming a thing. I wonder if that'll become more prominent as well, because there's possibly less measures in place, and probably more trading with China and maybe other places, and how on earth you keep your eye on trade situations there. But I guess clothing's an obvious one. Lots of food, and things like chocolate and nuts. But we import so much, don't we? We can't sustain what we've got used to in our island. We can't grow all the things we love and have as much quantity of consumerism on our own. So anything we trade, I think, has got the possibility of being badly traded.
Yeah. How does your faith kind of weave itself in and out of all that? Is that the driving force that wants you to be ethical and to look for ethical solutions across all different kinds of spheres?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's been where I've learned the most about the value of life, really, is with my faith. And I think human nature often is to treat people well and be ethical. So there is a human nature element to it as well, and caring for each other. But I think faith brings a dimension of what does everyone deserve, really. And the verse I carry around is John 10:10, which is he'll give us life and we can live it to the full. And that's not just for white people, is it? And it's not just for us, and it's not just for me. If it's life to the full, are the people that I'm trading and buying from, are they having life to the full, or am I hindering that? And are they kind of restricted from what they could access because they're not getting paid correctly? So I think just trying to have a global mindset as well, of thinking we're just all people, and all people deserve to have a go at getting the best out of life. And if we're part of that jigsaw for them, then we should do the right thing by that. So.
Yeah, brilliant. Your business has had to adapt. We've mentioned it a few times already. You're not open right now. You've had to adapt to the challenging trading conditions over the last number of years, as well as over the recent year as well. How have you dealt with that, and how emotionally have you dealt with the change that you've had to endure?
Yeah, it's a strange one. It feels a bit like we're just constantly pushing forwards a concrete block in a way. So it's not that it's not moving, and it's not that you're not going the right direction or that you can't see there's a journey to be done. It's just a bit restricted, and you can't quite see the clarity of what you want to see. And then I guess the constant wrestle of like this whole the theology around it, like I guess God knew it was coming. I guess maybe he didn't. Does that delay some of the prophetic words we've had because he didn't know, or he did know, or is it? It's all like what are we looking for next, really? And but it has been a bit of a slog. We've had even a journey before that in our own town of nearly getting a massive building that wraps itself around the cafe, and that was going to be for the church. And we had an offer in, and it was accepted, and then we got gazumped by Wetherspoons. So Wetherspoons opened and then took 30% of our trade at the same time. It's like, but what I could see was a brilliant community church centre offering all sorts of events and community space connected to the cafe. Suddenly it was all entwined and it looked brilliant. And it's the complete opposite. We were losing money, and here they were. And it's not a negative to Wetherspoons. This is just business life, isn't it? But it's just the shift of like, okay, well, the church doesn't look like that, and the cafe now doesn't look like that. How do you then find fresh vision again for what is it for our town then? And then the pandemic means that you're not here for the people you thought you were here for anyway. The people who are loyal customers, and we stand for being here for people who might feel lonely or isolated. And we've always had tables of more than 2 chairs on purpose so that you do sit together with people you don't know to kind of encourage that conversation. And suddenly we can't even hug them or chat to them.
Completely the opposite of what you were after is where you found yourself.
That's right. So we're at that point now of just back to God, of like, okay, so we're here. We've still got dreams and visions for what we want to do, and just help us, I guess, walk the right direction, keep walking. Because I think it's if you stop, isn't it? If you stand still, it feels a bit overwhelming. But I think, and it's okay to be overwhelmed at times, but I think there's something of like, but there must be something beyond this season. So just keep going.
Do you still believe in that vision then of something for the church to gather in and to then bring all sorts of different services to the community, as well as the coffee shop being integral to that? Do you still see that as part of your future? But you're now working out what does that look like? Maybe how does that work for you in your thinking going forward?
Yeah, I think it's just different. I think sometimes you have to let things die and ideas go. And at the time we were both on the leadership team of the church as well, so we had some input into that, and that's different now because we're not. So I think it just comes back to your own calling, doesn't it? And maybe there's something we can do here as the cafe. We'd started to connect with the local dance college and do some stuff with them. So I think there's ways we can reach out to the community as a cafe, as Christians, and with anyone from the church who wants to do that with us. But I think that vision there is a letting go, because otherwise all you get instead is the disappointment of not seeing it. So we looked around for a while, and we pursued it for a while, and looked at other buildings in different places, but it just wasn't quite the thing. So It's definitely been a letting go of that, and it's maybe something different ahead.
Wow. It seems to me that you're probably somewhat of a role model to people. I mean, as I'm listening to you now, I'm inspired. I think it's amazing. But obviously you're a woman. Then how do you think you as a woman? How do you think you're encouraging young women and girls to aspire to and train themselves for leadership?
Yeah, I think it's just, I'm ever hopeful that the playing field is leveling, isn't it? And I think, which is super helpful. And I think what gets left over is your own perceptions of who you are as a woman, maybe from things you've heard or felt as you've grown up or heard in history. And I think history can still have an impact because you know that at one point people thought you shouldn't really speak in public or you should be at home. And so even though that's not now, I think it's kind of strange that you know that's where it's come from. So I think a lot of the time it's a battle with yourself, or for me, it's a battle with myself. Of I can speak up and I can say something, and it's also, I don't know, there seems to be a certain way that a confident woman should be, almost like the 80s kind of office woman of like be loud and bossy and big shoulder pads, and I think it's just being yourself. I think we shouldn't just be categorized into those sort of things. It's just, right, who am I? What can I bring? Am I prepared to offer what I can bring and confident enough to have a go with that, and then just go for it? And and it's not to drag past perceptions with you, I think, as well.
Really, really good. I love that. Obviously, I want to come back to you are a mum of 4, and one of those, one of your children has an extra chromosome. You're an extra chromosome advocate, you said. So that's Down syndrome, isn't it?
It is.
What and who is that out of your children?
Yeah, so it's Grace, who has just turned 4 just after Christmas, our youngest daughter. So our surprise package.
How old are your other children then? Are they quite a bit older?
13, 11 and 7.
Okay.
So yeah, I just got to the point of like, we'd always thought 4 would be lovely, but I think I'd got to the point in life and wanting to get back into work of thinking, oh no, okay, three's okay, 3's fine. Okay, no.
And then 4.
Yeah.
What are your hopes for her then? You know, obviously she has Downs. I haven't met her. I know there are degrees of kind of how it affects people. And what are your hopes for her in her future?
Yeah, I just hope she has fun and has friendships and gets to live the best life she can. And I think you really see how it's dependent on other people. So her future experience is really dependent on how people approach her and perceive her and judge her and restrict her, because she'll try anything. And whether at the moment there's language barriers, but I can see that she'll have a go at stuff, and there's not often she won't try something in the house. So but yeah, you think actually a lot of the time I think it's maybe our restrictions on people, and even our systems of expected education levels and bits of paper to prove things that you've learned, and it's just being creative, isn't it, and finding her path through whatever she wants to do, really. And obviously she won't be everything, she won't be able to do everything, and she won't have the ability to do all sorts of things, but I'm not doing everything. I'm just doing the one thing I enjoy doing, so I just hope that, I guess.
Yeah. You say that you're an extra chromosome advocate. What does that mean then? Do you get involved in kind of groups and supporting other people that have children that have that extra chromosome? What does that look like for you?
It's like this whole mystery secret community you never knew was there. It's fascinating. So you get this ticket, this child, and you join groups because you don't have a clue what you're doing really, or what it's going to mean, and you overthink the future. And then you find these groups, this whole community of parents, which I guess is the same with any kind of situation that people have got where there's a child with maybe a disability. But yeah, it's great. So I'm part of Sunshine and Smiles, which is Leeds Down Syndrome Association. I'm connected with one in Wakefield, and I think all parents in those groups are advocates, because it's not because you're doing anything particularly outstanding, although some of them really are, but it's just because you're prepared to speak up for your child and answer questions and provoke questions from people, because I think people don't know what to say, and I wouldn't have known what to say. You know, before having Grace, we had we've got people who volunteer with us who have Down syndrome. A guy called Ian that I've known since I was 17. But I would still occasionally find it a bit awkward when he came really close, and I would be really kind of always in my space, and he's hanging around ages, and it's a bit weird. And now with this understanding of his cognitive development, and he's just wanting to be friendly. He's not weird, and it just takes a shift, doesn't it, of experience. You've got to experience all kinds of people, I think, to be able to be accepting and understanding. So yeah, I guess it's just an advocate in a parent kind of way, as you would with any of your children. Yeah,
that's so interesting. It reminds me of when I became a Christian. I've got to be honest. Weirdly, your story reminds me of this. Is you said that thing right at the beginning there when I asked you the question. You said it's like a secret society, and I remember pre-Christian. When somebody mentioned Christianity or the church, I just thought of ornate church buildings and people in frocks, with smells and bells, and I didn't know there was a whole world of Christianity that existed within our culture that represents all sorts of different kinds of people who worship in all sorts of different kinds of ways. But obviously, each and every one of them has Jesus at the center of their faith. You said you've been part of the church since you were 6?
Yeah.
Is that right? So do you kind of see that in a similar thing as well, that there's possibly people aren't quite out in the world, maybe even watching this today, who think of church in a certain way, and actually it can be so many different ways, but still be the body of Christ, to use a Christianese, i.e. the church. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think I'm probably pretty liberal left wing, so it won't be everyone's side. But I just feel like if we're here to bring Jesus to everyone, and everyone should be able to relate to Jesus, then there shouldn't be a situation where you can't relate to church, because Jesus is available for everybody and would sit and listen to everybody. And it's back to that thing of knowing the person again, isn't it? I think it's easy to judge a situation or a lifestyle choice or all sorts until you've got someone in front of you that you're having a conversation with, and then you get the empathy and the compassion and understanding. And so I feel like church just should be able to reach everybody if we really are reflecting the body of Christ.
Wonderful. What's next for you, Linda? Finally, what's next for you? What would you see around the corner, on the horizon? Where's your journey taking you?
Yeah, I don't know. I read that question. It's an interesting one. It's a funny time to dream forward, isn't it? I think I'd love to get back to Uganda and take the children and have them experience something beyond the UK that's a bit, to do with culture. I'd love to see the roastery grow, and I'd love to see that become part of the church journey as well, and be able to support churches with some of the things we've learnt along the way with different bits of church life, and assist people with that, and just see business and church grow together and support each other. And we're in the stage of the children growing up, so just to have some time. It's been great having some time with them. It's hard to always value it in lockdown because it's such a pressurized situation, but it is also a gift to have some time with them. So to try and keep that, I guess, to try and have just time at home, not to always have to do a big trip out or spend a ton of money, but just be together. So
I'm going to give myself a bonus question just out of something that you said there, that church and businesses can grow together. What do you mean by that?
I think, I don't know. I guess I'd love to see. I think there's nothing wrong with something that makes money, and something that makes money can support the church, which is the church should be supporting people beyond themselves and the wider community. So it's not for just the growth of church. I don't ever mean that. I mean church in its truest sense of reaching out. And I feel like all of community should be kind of cogs that fit together and work together, and it's all for the purpose of Christ, and it's all for everyone to prosper. Rather than the kind of I don't know, the big multinational.
Yeah.
Where just the gap between rich and poor, the way that is widening and widening and widening. If Christians in business together with church can't do something to pull that together and make sure everyone's fed and everyone's got shelter, and I feel like that needs to be done together. There needs to be a money-making arm of church life, and it can all just be in Christian. Yeah.
Wow, that's a challenging kind of vision, but one that I love, and I hope if any Christians are watching this, as well as non-Christians, that maybe that's something you can begin to think about, how you can engage and connect with business, and how then business and church can hand in hand grow and reach more people, so that equality is seen throughout all our different kind of societies and cultures that we're a part of, and they're not necessarily have to be two separate entities. Wonderful. How can people get in contact with you if they want to know more about you, more about CLOs, more about Down syndrome? How can they contact you, Linda?
Yeah, well, we're on Instagram as CLO Coffee, CLO, the letters coffee, with no underscore on that one. And then clocoffee.com is the website, and there's contact details on there. And any kind of contact through the coffee shop, through the website, in that way comes to me and Nick, because we're the team. So it's not going off to some big team somewhere. So if you want to just get in touch with me about Down syndrome or anything, then go through clocoffee.com, and I can take that off into my own emails and be in touch.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Hey, listen, it's been a real thrill to talk to you on this last half an hour or so. I've learned quite a bit. I've learned a bit more about you. My prayer is, and my hope is, that as people watch this video, that they think a little bit outside the box, because I guess that's what you and Nick have been doing. You've just been thinking outside the box and dreaming outside the box for so many years. And sometimes people have tried to put you back in the box. Maybe circumstances have tried to put you back in the box. But I see with you just someone who is happy to try different things. And if you make a mistake, or if it doesn't quite work, okay, we'll pull back, but we'll try again. And I think that's a really positive and encouraging way to think and way to live. So thank you for sharing your story with us.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for the time.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Linda Castle as much as I did. What an inspiring woman. When I asked Linda for one mantra that sums up her approach to life and business, she gave me a couple of verses from the Bible. Well, from John's Gospel, actually, chapter 10. It's where Jesus says, "I am the gateway. To enter through me is to experience life, freedom, satisfaction. I have come to give you everything in abundance, more than you expect, life in its fullness until you overflow." I wonder what life in all its fullness, or indeed abundant life, means to you. At the time of recording this reflection, much of the world has experienced lockdowns and other restrictions due to COVID-19, and it certainly doesn't seem like life is overflowing with freedom. Well, quite the opposite. Many of us are experiencing severe frustration at what's happening right now. There's a fear of what might happen next, and, well, the depression at the loss of things that we hold dear. Linda spoke quite openly and honestly about the challenges she's faced. Business uncertainty, plans for expansion and growth that failed to materialise, having to close down coffee shops and make staff redundant. How she's not just adjusted to, but embraced life with a child who will always have special needs. She's experienced the different kinds of disappointment, loss and grief that many of us have gone through in life. By her own admission, she's one of those irritatingly extrovert, enthusiastic and optimistic people. However, I think that Linda relies on more than just these personality traits to get through. It seems that her lifelong faith in and relationship with a God who she believes is good brings her inner peace and hope. And that relationship has helped her not just weather all kinds of demanding business and life situations, but helped her embrace the losses and challenges and keep moving forwards. Even when daily life has looked like pushing a concrete block forward without any signposts, as Linda put it, that relationship has kept her going back to God for fresh fuel and inspiration. Maybe you're listening to this broadcast and you recognise your own need for inner peace, for freedom from fear, or healing from disappointments or loss. Well, I believe that Jesus came to meet your needs. Through faith in him and prayer, we can experience the weight of these heavy things being taken off us. Jesus invites us to do just that. He says in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, "Are you weary, carrying a heavy burden? Then come to me. I'll refresh your life, for I am your oasis. Simply join your life with mine. Learn my ways, and you'll discover that I'm gentle, humble, easy to please. You'll find refreshment and rest in me, for all that I require of you will be pleasant and easy to bear." Now, I was struck by what motivates Linda, what keeps her going. She's someone who has a strong sense of purpose in life. She desires to line up with Christ's command that we love our neighbour as ourselves, whether that's locally or far away and on another continent. Linda has found immense satisfaction from roasting and selling fair trade coffee and operating the CLO cafes, but there's more than that. She's found her calling and destiny in pursuing ethical trading, in running her businesses as social enterprises and community hubs, and in her personal life of advocating for the children and parents of those with an extra chromosome, like her daughter, Grace. Perhaps you've listened to our conversation and you've been wondering about your motivations in life, what your heart beats for, what gets you out of bed in the morning. Maybe the pandemic, with all its changes, has made you reevaluate just what you want to do with the rest of your one precious life on earth. Perhaps it's time for you, as Linda said, to dream forwards again. I believe that joining our lives with Jesus in a relationship of trust and learning his ways is the door to finding lifelong purpose and fulfillment. Life isn't meant to be a zero-sum game where my gain is someone else's loss or vice versa. God's plan is for everyone to experience abundant life and grow the pie, to use a business expression, and grow the good for everyone. If that's you, let me reassure you today that Jesus is 100% behind you and believes in your potential. He wants to see you prosper and get on in every part of your life. He never wants to see you harmed, and he certainly doesn't want to harm you. Whatever your time of life or circumstances, his plans are all about giving you a hope and a future. I believe that our heavenly, loving Heavenly Father wants to help you fulfill your potential and to have an abundant life in partnership with his good purposes for you. He wants to bless you, and whatever your experiences of life have been in the past, he wants to do you good. Today, if you want to experience inner peace and freedom from all the negative things that have held you captive in the past, or if you want to be able to hope and to dream forward again, perhaps you'd like to pray a prayer with me. Lord Jesus, I thank you that you came to give me abundant life. A life free from sin and all the things that seek to destroy my hope, peace, and sense of purpose in life. Would you take away my guilt, any sense of failing or of despair, and make me clean again? Please would you renew my inner life by the presence of your Holy Spirit, and teach me your ways as I join my life with yours now. Please would you speak to me about your good purpose and plans for my life. Thank you for hearing my prayer and for answering me. Thank you for changing me. If you'd like to know more about starting or running a social enterprise or fair trading, you can contact Linda Castle via their website, clocoffee.com. That's 3 letters, clocoffee.com. Finally, please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel and tap that notification bell so that you get notified every time we put out a new episode. And if you want to know more about how to grow your faith in Jesus. Maybe you prayed that prayer, or you'd like us to pray for you. Please contact us at hello@crossedwires.uk. We'd love to send you some links to resources that we believe will help you on your journey. Well, I've been your host, Mark Kelly, and I hope you'll join me again when we release the next episode of Crossed Wires, the show where we try to bring clarity through conversation.